FPL Game Week 21 team selection. It is finally time to make a decision on what I'm going to do with both Son and Salah, and now I have the injured Trent Alexander-Arnold in my team as well. Today we'll have a look at transfers, we'll have a look at my lineup, and we'll talk about some captaincy picks as well. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes on the video is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here as well. Before we look at Game Week 21, a quick review of Game Week 20, although it does feel like a little bit a while ago now. I did get a massive 97 points in that week, which was 12 above my safety score, which was 85. It was really Areola and then captaining Salah that were the big differences. On my deadline stream, I went back and forth about Salah captaincy and Alvarez captaincy. About 4 minutes to the deadline, I moved it from Salah onto Alvarez. And then about 2 minutes before the deadline, I moved it back again. I thought I bottled it, but Salah did come in with a 16-point return. Areola with an 11 as well was enough to give me a strong green arrow. However, of course, I rolled my second transfer, so I've now got 2 free transfers in the bank and just under $1 million. So I do have the likes of Salah and Son and Trent Alexander-Arnold all causing issues in my team now. So with Salah and Son going away to their international tournaments, this was probably the single week we needed everything else to go smoothly in our teams, and it has gone anything but. This has probably been the most chaos I've ever seen in FPL. Bowen, Trent, being doubts to Erling Haaland still. We don't know whether De Bruyne is going to be ready. There's other doubts in there as well, like Charlie Taylor. Some of us are relying on defence as well. So a little bit of an understanding of when I expect some of these to be back by. Trent is expected to be out for a few weeks. Currently predicted to be back for Game Week 23 against Arsenal, but being a knee injury, that's not a very concrete date. Son and Salah going away to their international tournaments. Son is a much heavier favourite in the tournament with South Korea than Salah and Egypt are in their tournament. Salah is probably predicted to get Morocco in the quarterfinals, which they are then predicted to lose, which would mean he's back for Burnley at home in Game Week 24. Son, on the other hand, is predicted to go a long way in that tournament, and unless he wins it, is probably expected to come back in Game Week 25. That being said, Son is probably the priority sell for me, with Salah and Trent both being predicted to come back earlier than him. So Son out is definitely the first transfer I'm thinking of this week. Of course, I have 2, but we'll discuss maybe why using the second one next week is the better option. Right now, Phil Foden is definitely the priority for me, and I feel like he is the best asset I could go and buy. In my transfer targets video from yesterday, I did dive into lots of midfielders. I won't necessarily go through them all in detail. If you want to go and check out some of the other midfielders that potentially you could look at, like Diogo Jota, like Richarlison, maybe go and watch that video. 7.9 million though doesn't quite free me up enough money that maybe I would want to, but he looks so good for Manchester City at the moment. They also have a likely double game week between now and either Game Week 25 or Game Week 28. They also play in the blank game week, which is going to be Game Week 26, caused by the Carabao Cup final, but of course Manchester City are already out of that tournament, so you have a little bit of security of having a player in a fixture that week. Now, there are a few other players that I am looking at, all of which are cheaper than Foden. The only reason I wouldn't go Foden is if I want a cheaper option in my team. Now, I could go to a cheaper Manchester City player, particularly Bernardo Silva, who just seems to tick along nicely with points. He never really has 1 week where you think he's definitely going to get a return that week. But if you play him every week, he tends to tick along nicely with points. He's not quite the level of Foden, but he's 1.5 million cheaper than Foden. A similar price to him is Pascal Gross of Brighton. 6.4 million for him does feel like a nice option. Just with João Pedro playing so many minutes, it doesn't look like Pascal Gross is going to get penalties for Brighton at the moment. But the fixtures for Brighton are some of the nicest. They also have a guaranteed fixture in Game Week 26, the blank game week as well. Wolves at home, Luton away in the next 2 fixtures for Brighton means he could be a great option. He's on all set pieces as well. He is pretty close in terms of Bernardo Silva and Pascal Gross. The final one is I could go really cheap, and that is Garnacho at Manchester United. They have Spurs at home this week, which is okay. It kind of depends whether Romero and Van der Ven are likely to play in that game or not. Because if they're out, I definitely think there'll be goals in that game. And Garnacho looks pretty nailed for Manchester United at the moment. 4.8 million could be a really nice cheap option that frees up all the money I need to go and buy potentially Erling Haaland back into my team next week. But right now, if I had to make a decision, Phil Foden is the number one midfielder I want to buy this week. Now, I do have 2 free transfers, so I of course could use the second transfer on something else in my team, but there is so much value to rolling a second free transfer if you have the ability to do it, even if it means putting out a slightly weaker squad this week going into game week 22, because there are 4 real things that we will learn between game week 21 and 2.5 weeks later, game week 22. So the first of all, we'll have confirmed the blank game week in game week 26. We will know if Liverpool-Chelsea is the Carabao Cup final or not. If that's the case, then Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs and Luton will all blank in game week 26. We will also get updates on injury news. For me, it's Trent Alexander-Arnold, but for you, it might be someone like Jared Bowen. We will have a much better understanding of when we're expected them to come back. If Trent is ruled out for a few weeks more, then I could easily go and sell him. But if I only have 1 free transfer next week, I couldn't do that and I'd be stuck holding on to him. Next up is knowing and understanding how the likes of Son and Salah are doing at their international tournaments, particularly Salah, who I think is more of a priority buy back into my team than Son will be. By the time game week 22 kicks off, we will have had the round of 16 for the African Cup of Nations. We will know if Salah is going to be playing against Morocco in the quarterfinals of that tournament, and so whether he's likely to be back in game week 24 or he might be away a little bit longer. And the final thing is, between now and game week 22, we have another round of the FA Cup. So that will leave, by the time game week 22 comes around, just 1 round of FA Cup fixtures between game week 22 deadline and then the game week 29, which is the biggest blank of the season, which means we will have a good prediction of what teams will play in game week 29 and what teams will have a blank in game week 29. So it might impact if you're making a transfer for a fringe player, if I'm downgrading maybe Trent or Trippier in defence, it might impact what defender I want to go and buy. Not just 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 massive pieces of information we will learn between game week 21 and game week 22. So if possible, I know most of you won't fall into the position where rolling a transfer is anywhere near a possibility this week, but part of me thinks it might just be worth taking a slight hit this week on points to get all that information and a little bit more flexibility next week. So with that in mind, let's have a look at my lineup for next week, bearing in mind that I plan on making just 1 transfer this week. Areola is going to start in goal away at Sheffield United. Dubravka on my bench against Manchester City. I think this is finally the week where Areola's heroics do come to an end, but he is the better goalkeeper. He has been playing well recently. I'm still pretty pleased with the 2 goalkeepers I've got at the moment. Into defence, it's not ideal, but a lot of you will be looking at your 11 this week and thinking it's not ideal. Trippier, I expected to be able to bench him for the next couple of weeks until their nice run of fixtures from game week 23, and it looks like he's going to be called into action a little bit sooner than I expected. Porro away at United, Gabriel at home to Palace, and then Trippier coming in for Trent at home to Manchester City. It is a home fixture. He does have open play threat. He does have all set pieces as well. So maybe he gets a return and maybe I get a little bit lucky. I do have Charlie Taylor at home to Luton on my bench, but he is a doubt to play as well. We will have a press conference for Burnley on Thursday, so hopefully we get an update. But even if he is looking like he's going to be back available, I'll probably still bench him because it's the first game of the game week on the Friday evening. I don't trust Burnley defensively, so I do think I'll probably still bench him, even though it might be the best fixture we have this week. Into midfield, so I do plan on making that 1 free transfer, and although Salah out will free up more money, I'm more likely to want Salah back sooner. As we said, he's more likely to be back sooner from his international tournament. So Son to Foden is the predicted transfer. As I've said, I will be doing that live on my deadline stream. I'm not confirming any transfers early, and we might get some Manchester City team news early on Friday, potentially leading up before the deadline, which could impact my decisions. Anthony Gordon, who I planned on benching as well, does come in from Manchester City at home. Again, let's just hope that Manchester City decide to leak some goals in this game. And then it is Cole Palmer and Bukayo Saka, about 2 players that I am happy with in my team this week. Up front, it is Julian Alvarez, it is Dominic Solanke, and it is Ollie Watkins. I'm quite happy with this forward line. With the Liverpool injuries, with Salah going away, could Bournemouth actually be a little bit more in this game than maybe we originally thought. Watkins, if he was at home, would be a great captaincy shout, but I'm not certain, especially given that he's not on penalties. And Julian Alvarez away at Newcastle, as we've spoken about, with the doubts of both De Bruyne and Haaland starting this game. I think Alvarez is pretty much guaranteed to play and play probably 90 minutes, so he is in there as well. It does mean that I have 4 players in Newcastle versus Manchester City, which is not ideal at all. But I've just got to hope for goals in that game. I think all of them are fine individually, but just having 4 players in that game just doesn't feel ideal at all. In terms of captaincy, I'm just going based on fixture, based on route to points, so set pieces, penalties, everything like that. And it's between Cole Palmer and Bukayo Saka. Cole Palmer just plays so early on in the game week. Plus, we saw against Middlesbrough, those Chelsea performances where they suddenly don't turn up. Their missed chances are there. And I know we've seen it with Arsenal. I know we've seen it with Saka recently. But right now, I am favouring going on Saka captaincy, Palmer vice captain. Now, as a little bit of a note, please put at least your vice captain or your captain playing in the first week of FPL. Definitely put your vice captain on someone in the first weekend because, of course, game week 21 is split across 2 weeks. So if something happens to your captain in the second week or they pick up an injury, don't put your vice captain on a player we won't know if they're fit either in the second week. At least put them on the first weekend. And I think if you're not captaining Cole Palmer, he is the best vice captain this week. So here is my initial plan for game week 21. I got a big green arrow in game week 20. So I'm accepting that I might have to take a little bit of a rank drop going into this week, hopefully giving me more flexibility than everyone else has going into game week 22. After the next round of FA Cup, after the winter break as well. So let me know what you think. Is this too weak? Should I just use my second transfer? And if so, what on? I could do something like Trent to Estupiñán. I could do Trippier to Estupiñán. I could sell Mo Salah, for example, as well in my team. There are a few things that I am considering, but right now, one transfer of Son out, Foden in is my prediction for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Drop any questions you have about your team in the comment section down below. There'll be one final video on Friday answering your game week 21 questions. Like the video before you go, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll be back again very soon.